Okay. And boom, we're live. Guys, welcome to Wolf Web 3 podcast. We've got Crypto Wendy on the show, number one female crypto YouTuber, influencer extraordinaire in the world. We got her on this. We got her on the conversations today. We had her back on my personal page a couple years ago, but I wanted to bring her back, get some thoughts on what's going on in the world of crypto. We've been doing some cool stuff together. I see her at events every now and then. Like we were at the, every time I see you, I guess, and I think about it, Wendy, it's people punching each other and sweating all over the place and bleeding all over the mats and stuff. But how do you enjoy those karate combat events?
I think they're super fun. I like them. I just I grew up in a kung fu studio, and I've been boxing since I've been 16, so quite a long time. So it's just kind of it's fun to watch. It's like at this point, like boxing and martial arts are more of like a meme. It's just like a bunch of people that need to prove themselves, and that's fun. I'm happy for them, but it's fun to watch. I mean, it's just kind of like like walking by a street fight that happens where I'm from. So I'm happy for them. If you guys are happy, I'm happy for you.
Me, it works. It's kind of funny. Like we know what's going on, yet it's like still we can't not watch it sometimes, especially if we know the people that are going in. At Token 2049, I know Ashley Decan and Aaron and Blonde Broker are going to go at it together. I have no idea what to expect there. I'm nervous just because I know they're friends and I like both of them. Do you have any thoughts on any of the stuff that's going on in Singapore?
I'm excited for the fighters to fight. You know, they get a bag, they get to make some money, so that's cool. Me personally, I've been in enough fights myself. I would not want to fight somebody that I like. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't even want to fight somebody that I don't like. I'm like way past that in my life. Like I train for mental health purposes. Shout out to the Self-Care Lab out of Montclair, California. If you guys want to donate, go to my website. They've been up there as well as House of Roof, so we're always representing for them. But yeah, I'm happy to watch people fight, and I just hope they understand that it's very emotional. It can be very emotional at times.
Definitely. So listen, we're gonna dive into a whole range of topics. I feel like this is a good place to start. And I don't know. I don't see this question being asked enough. And I think it's good for podcasts. I know I've done like 150 episodes of the podcast, and I feel like everyone has a podcast now. And I've seen a lot more of like parroted conversation and just like generic advice. I would love to get more stories into the fold. I feel like that's super interesting. Like on our podcast a couple years ago, you had told a bunch of stories, and I always think that we learn the most. At least I do. I pull the most info from those stories rather than generic, do this, do that. So anyways, the question I have is like, what do we need to know about you that would help contextualize the rest of this conversation around, things that we're working for, the things that we value in our lives, as well as the crypto markets and stuff? What's something that might help contextualize, I guess, the conversation around you?
I say what I want when I want, and I am who I am, and that's that. Like, I'm a very compassionate person, but at the same time, I have my opinions on things, and that's that.
Well, up until a couple years ago, that was dangerous territory to be trekking on. You saying what you want, like we were in a culture where that was not exactly. Now it's sort of shifted, I feel like,
I mean, the thing is, though, is like a little bit about my past. Like I worked in healthcare for 7 years prior to being in crypto full time. I worked in infectious disease, HIV/AIDS, and my clientele was extremely diverse. So I had to learn. I mean, I kind of knew I had a lot of street smarts prior to that, but I really had to learn to navigate different cultures and different groups and all those types of things. So I'll say what I want to say, but I'll say it in a very polite manner. That's that. I don't want to necessarily say PC, but just I treat people with decency because I think that's like the bottom, like that's literally the bar. And I think that that's important. Like you can have candor when you say particular things, if you go about it the right way.
Yeah, like there's a difference between being firm on a position that you care about versus just flaming
Yeah.
anyone who
Yeah.
disagrees.
Yeah. You don't have to be a dick.
I'd agree with you there. So the question here. So cycles have looked very different in the past. I've heard we have spaces every single day talking about, what people think about the market, if it compares to this market or the 2019 or 2018 or 2022. I'm curious for you what life has looked like, as well as any thoughts on the differences about this cycle versus prior ones.
People aren't even trying to hide their intentions anymore. I mean, I feel like at least in previous cycles, there were many different companies and entities that were really trying to build something to be revolutionary. And then, their companies ended up failing and then they decided to do a ridiculous but I feel like in this particular market, we're seeing so much greed and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And people aren't even hiding it anymore. They're not even trying to build something. They're not even trying to do things that are different, which is fine. And I think eventually, like we will start to see that again, but the election is going to be pretty big. It's going to play a pretty big role in that, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. I don't know if things like Pumped Up Fun had to do with that. There's a lot of rhetoric in the last couple of months about whether or not that was good or bad for the ecosystem. When the music was playing, everyone was happy. I was happy. I don't think we
Well,
thought
this is
past,
the thing, like, this is the thing, is people pretend that they don't know what Pump.Fun was, and they pretend to be like, "Oh, this and that and this and that." It is what it is. Like, everybody is in crypto to make as much money as ethically as possible, and there's no issue with that. Like, it is what it is. But a lot of people play dumb, and, they pretended that this was some sort of narrative. Like, this is the thing, Pump.Fun is for gamblers. It's for people that are interested in gambling, people that understand the risks, etc. And I also feel like, too, majority of the people that are playing around on Pump.Fun, they knew what that was. They knew exactly that there was rugs. They knew exactly that there's unscrupulous behavior, etc. Like, it wasn't like we got brand new people coming into crypto. Like, nothing that came out of Pump.Fun was supposed to be revolutionary. Just a way for people to make money in a different aspect, and that's fine. That's their business. But I don't think we can sit here and say that, that the current people that are in the ecosystem didn't know what was going on, because there's no new retail here.
Mm.
There's very, 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 very few. Like, I don't know anyone brand new that got into crypto.
Yeah, that was one thing I was worried about. Is it did feel like a game of people trading money amongst themselves and things like that. And I was gonna ask this before I do. I wanted to pull up your account real quick, just so people. I'm sure they know if they're watching this. I feel like if you've been in crypto for more than 6 months, you would have found Wendy's page. But here's her Twitter. For people who aren't following her, definitely give her a follow on
Ooh.
X or Twitter, and as well as if you're trying to stay up to date on YouTube, this is the way, fam.
Yeah,
She's on live literally every day.
I go live every single day, and then I also do stuff on TikTok also. Like, I do, like, the breaking news on TikTok and on Instagram. We get that content out super, super fast, but I make a lot of content every single day.
Let's go. I love it. Love it. Yeah, I respect the grind. It is definitely a hustle. Even if you have help, it is still a hustle. So, anyways, the question I was going to lean into was you had mentioned, there's not as much retail interest. We're not seeing the interest that we saw that we maybe would have thought would hit at this point in the market. You were also on the Killer Whales show. I believe they had another season. I believe there's maybe even multiple of these shows coming out in the crypto world, as far as an investor side, and then people pitching, and then people even watching, and they're looking to add some segments into it. Curious if there's anything you can talk about on that, or if there's any insights you pulled from filming.
I mean, I always have fun doing the whole killer whale thing. It's great. It's fun. It's interesting. People always get confused, especially in the crypto industry. Which is not that they get confused; they just play dumb as to what it is. Like, people really thought that, like, it was supposed to be a show for entertainment, but people are like, "Oh, this is bad. This is not representing the industry good." Blah blah blah. But meanwhile, there's some random racist cartoon avatar that's saying terrible things. So it's like, you're mad about what I'm saying on Killer Whales, or what this person is saying, or how it's being portrayed, but you're dropping this word and that word and whatever. So really, what is it? Like, we're doing this for entertainment. You're doing it to be hateful and disgusting. So, like, I mean, it kind of depends what it is, but it was always fun. Like, I enjoy doing it. I think it's a great time. I like to see innovation. I like to see people competing. But at the same time, like, there's other concepts that should be explored, especially in crypto, and hopefully we start to see some of that happen.
Have you found any, by the way, in this last cycle, any projects where you were like, you know what, this is not something I maybe would have given 2 cents to in the past, but for some reason I'm interested now? Like, has your thoughts, like with the NFTs, for example, during that first cycle in 21 and 2, I was like, dude, some of these are going to change the world. At least, this many I think will change the world. And then majority didn't, and they crashed. And I think maybe people got bearish on trying to build anything, because they were like,
It wasn't
okay.
that people got bearish, it's just the way like, NFTs were created. Like, Bitcoin allows people to hold their own money. Bitcoin
Mhm.
has its valid use case in that aspect. Like, Bitcoin is money, it's property. It allows you to essentially break away from the banks or any other predatory third party. NFTs are essentially like Bitcoin is to money. Like, NFTs are supposed to be to creators, to artists, to writers, to screenwriters, to musicians, like whatever that is, to track digital collectibles. But it just kind of became a mockery. Like, all the 10,000 generative profile things, like, that's not what an NFT is. Like, yeah, you can go ahead and use those IP rights, but who's really going to want to use that? Like, Pudgy Penguins did a really great job at that. Sappy seals are cute, but Pudgy Penguins really set precedent for that. But at the same time, like, we're looking like there's only like a few NFT music artists that are still around, that are still actively creating, and we just didn't really see a whole lot of that. And it was kind of disappointing to see the crypto community just be so upfront with being okay with stealing people's music and stealing people's livelihood, and just get into the PFP stuff, when in reality that's not what NFTs were for. Like, the backlash that a lot of the artists get for, like, yeah, we need royalties, and then people got mad at them for wanting to make a living, is just absolutely absurd and ridiculous. Like, It's just kind of mind blowing. But again, it just kind of shows how greedy people are, and that people don't really care about artists and the real creators. And that's a hill for me. It's something that I'm very, very passionate and I advocate for. My daughter's an artist. People that I love most in this world have been artists and creators and musicians. And I literally watched them get absolutely destroyed by record labels and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. What's interesting, my arc in crypto land came from NFTs at the beginning, and then crypto altcoins, and then just trying to learn and watch as much content from people that I know who'd been in the industry longer than I have. And slowly over the last couple of years, I found myself getting kind of orange pilled. And I think it was just the fact that I didn't give Bitcoin a deeper look. I just figured, oh, it's the top coin. Period. Like it's just like all these other ones. It's just something you buy and it goes up, hopefully. And I started to do more research into it. I finally, after a long time, like read the 8-page white paper. I've been putting that off for like 2 years, thinking it was like 100 pages and it was way over my head. Ended up being very simple. Was nothing like I thought it was going to be.
Well, it's
And
not really simple though. That's the thing, is like you have to be kind of tech savvy to understand what it is. It took me a couple times to read it or to really understand what it meant. Like I would go through and have to Google some terms because like I don't come from a strong tech background. Like I come from a math background. I come from, a healthcare background, customer service, communications, like marketing, like that type of background. So I feel like it is still kind of complex and it makes it hard for people to understand. But Bitcoin will always be special. It will always have its place. Even though we have all the ETFs that have come out of the woodwork.
Well, I had asked Rob, actually. We had Rob from Digital Asset News on recently on the show, and I asked him, I was like, what would happen if the government just said, you know what, we get it, we're on board, it makes sense, we're going to do the thing, but we like Ethereum better. Ethereum is the one we're rolling with, and we're going to move that way. Does Bitcoin lose more than it wins in a scenario where Ethereum is like picked as the coin?
Well, I mean, it's not that. Like, this is the thing. Like, what makes Bitcoin unique is that Satoshi is anonymous, and he or she, whomever entity, is anonymous for a reason. When you're talking about things like Ethereum or Solana or Cardano, like other projects that are not Bitcoin, like they have foundations, they still have people essentially kind of running it in some sort of capacity. But at the same time now, because we have all the spot ETFs, Bitcoin's essentially kind of lost the plot. And it was kind of upsetting to see so many people, cheer on the ETFs. Like I'll cheer on the ETF all day and I'll be super excited for it because at the end of the day, it's going to pump my bags. Like I'm going to make more money that way. But is that really what we want? Do we care more about making money than we do having being able to practice liberty and to own our own assets? Because what's happening is we have these large entities with unlimited money coming in that are buying, which takes away the opportunity for the underdogs to buy at a reasonable price.
Yeah, it seems there's a bit of a disconnect in the communities in crypto land. I don't know if it's because if it's a knowledge gap or if it's purely just desires out of the
I mean,
ecosystem, like why they're there.
But we talked about it, like people got super greedy with the memes with Pump.Fun. People got greedy with the NFTs. Like there's just there's an abundance. I don't even want to say abundance. There's a plethora of greed in our industry. And I get it because we're talking about money, but at the same time, where does humanity come into play? Like where do people want to actually do better for their communities? And that's something I talk about all the time. Like I'm not one to idolize celebrities or idolize rich people. I joke around a lot about it on Twitter because it's funny. But like at the same time, like I just don't understand why we're not doing more good with our industry because we have the ability to.
We do. There is a bunch of ability. What's interesting is, especially the people who end up being the people carrying the torch kind of thing, like the Elon Musk, the people like, we just saw Telegram's guy gets arrested in France, and there's all this legal stuff. We know Chris Pavlovsky was like running around Europe trying to figure out what to do, and it feels like they get burned for it. I am curious on your thoughts. At least from mine, it seems, and I don't know because I don't know if I can trust the algorithm, but it feels like everything's getting increasingly more dystopian as the months go on, to a point where I'm like, okay, what does 5 years from now look like? A couple years ago, it was almost fun to kind of see if we could project a little bit and cast a little bit of vision for fun. And now I'm getting to a point where it feels kind of heavy, and I'm not sure what direction we're headed. And I am curious on your thoughts on the next few years.
I mean, it's scary. I'm a parent, so anytime I make a decision, my kid, she comes first, and I base that decision around her. Like I built my entire career in crypto and on social media around my child's schedule, because I'm the only person that she can rely on to do those types of things. So it just, as a parent, it scares me. because again, like we talked about, there's a really big lack of accountability. And I think a lot of that has to do with what's happening in people's households. Like people, they get married, they have kids, or they just decide to have kids out of whatever reason. And they don't really fully understand how important that is and what type of sacrifice that requires. Like you don't just, it's not your right to create life and not be there. Like having a child, your whole entire life changes. Like you build your life around your child to make sure you give them the best possible life as they can. And that doesn't mean buying them the newest shoe or buying them the newest iPhone or material goods. It means spending your time. Time is the most valuable thing any of us have in this world. And your time should be dedicated to supporting and teaching and sharing with your child so that when they grow up and they go out in the world, they're able to showcase decency to other people. And they turn out to be good people, the best of their ability. Like obviously you can't anticipate or force your kid or your child to be a good person. But at the same time, like that's the goal. And I just like, there's a lot of parents that just don't spend that additional time with their kids. And that's probably the scary thing. Like all the drama that we have in the world, especially with the US, like with the social issues and the pew pew violence and the drug stuff, like a lot of that is stuff at home that parents are just not dealing with or they choose not to deal with. And it's a really hard topic to have. People get pissed off at me all the time, but I'm literally I'm a parent. I'm watching it. Like I raised 2 step kids. I've got my daughter, she's 8 years old. And it's, I also got to take accountability for my actions. Like sometimes I'm on my phone too much, or sometimes I'm working too much and not able to give her everything I need at that particular time. But at least I can admit that I'm working on doing better. Like no parent is perfect, but at the same time, like we have to spend time like parenting our kids. Like that's a hard pill to digest, but it is what it is.
Have there been any lessons in the last, like in 2024, or any roadblocks / walls you hit, setbacks in 2024 that where you didn't maybe expect? And kind of curious if there's anything you were able to pull from those experiences.
I mean, I've had a really rough like last 2 years. It's been like absolutely crazy, like with my personal life, which I don't talk too much about my personal life because like no matter what I say or how I explain it, people will have something negative to say without actually understanding who I am, how I grew up, and different things I've gone through in my life. Because a lot of these people, especially in crypto, it's platinum spoon in mouth, it's not even silver spoon in mouth. So me personally, like I've had a lot of personal stuff that I've had to deal with in the last couple of years that has been pretty wild. But it just the last 2 years also further prove that I will probably never be 100% trustworthy. And I'm really going to watch who I associate and I interact with because I've just seen so many terrible things happen in this industry. It's crazy. Like I thought the music industry was bad, entertainment industry was bad, but like crypto takes the cake. So I mean, I love it. I'm thankful for it, but at the same time, it's like it's absolutely wild seeing a lot of the stuff that happens.
Do you see a lot of the people? So you've been here, you're OG in crypto land, especially making
I'm not
content
an
as
OG.
well,
There's
but
people that are like been here way, way longer than me. I got in of 2017. Like I first heard about it like 2012 maybe for my stepson. But yeah, there's people that have been way longer than me. I just got on. I got in around 2017 because that's when it made sense.
do you see some of this when you first got in, some of those people that were around that were the OGs when you were getting into it? Do you see a lot of them sticking around still? Do you see the Bitcoiners even? Are they still making content? Are they still excited about it?
Well,
Have they left? Or?
the Bitcoiners were shitcoiners back then. Like it wasn't ever like the Bitcoin maxis didn't exist back then. There was a couple there I don't even remember any of them. And then it started getting super toxic. So they're kind of like a brand new cult, which cool, that's fine. Like my whole thing was I always traded altcoins to accumulate more Bitcoin or, to take care of bills and whatnot. But the ecosystem's changed. Some people have done really well for themselves, others haven't. It's just, but I do still see a couple people around, and that's good.
What are your thoughts on the this doesn't have to be any kind of financial advice, but your thoughts on Bitcoin? I know there's a lot of the reason I started paying attention to Bitcoin, particularly because I saw so many billionaires dumping enormous amounts of money into Bitcoin to hold. And they were like, I understand something about Bitcoin now and I'm going to keep buying it. And I'm just Bitcoin.
I don't think they understand about Bitcoin. I think they're doing it just to make more money because if a massive company like BlackRock is dumping into it, like it's for a reason, they're not going to get left behind. All these people that are super wealthy, they're wealthy because they have followed the trends properly. And that's exactly what they're doing. They don't care about freedom. They don't care about sovereignty. They don't care about liberty. They just care about increasing their bottom line in most cases.
Where does that side of things, like liberty and the freedom that comes with Bitcoin, how much does that go into your your thought process when you're buying into Bitcoin? Is that something that is super high in the pedestal, or is Bitcoin for you more just like, I'm going to buy this thing because I know it's going to go up?
It's both because I have a child I have to take care of, but at the same time, what really got me excited about this industry was entrepreneurism, was the non-corporate capitalism, was the ability for people from all different walks of life, people that come from where I come from or below that, to actually make a name for themselves and do well, be able to take care of their families and to do so on their terms. So it's super important to me. That's the way that I run my show. That's the way I run all my socials. Like, what you see is what you get. We're very honest with every single thing we do. We disclose like absolute savages. And it's kind of, I've got a very interesting personality, a very, very headstrong. And I know other women are a little bit more soft spoken and whatnot. But at the same time, for me, I was brought up in a household that you express your opinions with decency, and you let people hear your voice, and not necessarily set boundaries. I didn't learn that till I was older. My mom didn't teach us that. But you just kind of let your voice heard and your opinions heard, and that's that.
Well, what are some of those values that you try and impart on people you're around? I know I don't want to dive too much into like the family side of things, but feel free to tell that you think are super important, especially for young people. I'm 26, so I'm coming out of college age, and I'm thinking about those things in the future. But
honesty is super important. Like, I feel like so many people try to hide who they are. They're worried about what society thinks of them, and they want to accommodate all of these social norms, which you don't have to do that. Like, just as long as you're a decent person and you set boundaries, like boundaries are super important, and decency is important. Like, I'm not even about respect. Like, nobody deserves respect at all. Like, respect is earned, but decency is like it's like the bar for human interaction. So just as long as you're a decent person and you're honest with yourself, then it's important. And of course, positive thinking is very, very important. I don't think we talk about that enough, like in schools, or like that's basically what religion is, which I don't want to get into that. But believing in yourself and being confident, and communicating is important. Being honest, really.
what are some practical things? So you've worked with I mean, you're very well known in the space. I'm sure you get 1,000 DMs a day. But as far as when you're connecting yourselves within business meetings, you're trying to find long-term partners, or just short-term collaborations, or there's a campaign coming up or whatever. How do you think about that and set yourself up as a creator? I'm sure there's a lot of creators who watch you, as well as setting some of those boundaries. Like, what that even looks like in a business setting. Is it prep
So
work before, or?
it's so funny. Like, we were actually, me and the team, we were just talking about it. Like, I got a bunch of DMs over the weekend for people like, we want you to promote this. We want you to promote that. I'm like, cool. This is the person you contact. These are the steps. They're like, well, we don't want to do that. How much are you going to charge? There's some cases where I don't charge companies at all. Like, the company has to fit with our ethos and with our values. Like, we have a very strict process on everything we do. We do the best we can. But we're very particular on how we do things. And if you don't want to accommodate that and you don't respect me enough, then I don't want to work with you.
What are some of those things? What is the main ethos behind everything that your brand is about and companies you work with?
We're very honest with with who we work with, well, why we work with it, work with that particular company, why it's exciting. It's just really about
What?
sorry. No, I gotta I'll deal with that later. Anyways, can you ask me the question again, please? I get the most random, like, people in the people in the entertainment industry are absolutely insane. Can you ask me
I believe
again?
you. Yeah, absolutely. It was a question around like the ethos around everything that you associate your brand with and the things you're trying to impart on the industry.
So I have a saying that we tell people on the channel all the time. Hear what I say, but listen to yourself. So it's basically, hear what I'm saying, hear what Cade says, hear what this person's saying, all these different influences, all these different opinions, etc. Hear what all of these people are saying, but listen to yourself. And that means continue to go do your due diligence and seek the truth and come up with a narrative that makes sense for you and your family.
Mm. You know, this question, there's a question I had asked, I think in the last episode, and it's very interesting now with where we're at in the market, but there's a lot of conversation happening. And I had a few people ask me to ask you. So I am curious in your thoughts on the metaverse, if that is still a word that we should even be using or thinking about. I feel like I haven't heard that term come up in a while.
The metaverse is very real. We're just not there yet. It's gonna come. Like, everything is going to be 100% online. Like, we're already live pretty much online, but it's not coming as fast as some people anticipated it to come. And again, like we had so many different projects in the last bull run that I think they're really excited. They wanted to create legitimate metaverses, but at the
Mm.
same time, like just because you have this really great idea doesn't mean it's going to work out. Like how many burger joints pop up all over America that go away? How many coffee shops pop up that end up going away? They're great ideas. They're just not executed properly. And I feel like we have that same thing that's occurred when it comes to different sectors in crypto.
Sorry, technical difficulties on the camera. No, I would tend to agree with you, especially on the metaverse side. The conversation around whether or not we're already living in that world currently and what we look like. I had brought this up in a prior episode about the Amazon stores that are going around right now, where you go in, there's nobody working there, or you go to the
Oh, I hate
restaurants
those.
where it's iPad. Yeah,
They're
what are
horrible.
your thoughts? Because it's very
I
split.
hate them.
What do you
I
not like
hate
about
them.
it?
I think they're absolutely atrocious. I think that humans need interaction. They need to communicate with other people. Um, you know, and I think that they're absolutely atrocious. Like there's a Popeyes that's by my house that I go to every once in a while. Um, and they have one person inside working and they have a robot that does the drive-through stuff. Like I like to interact with people. Like I don't want to deal with the robot. So I don't like it. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's healthy. I think there's some sectors that need to be I think there's some sectors that need to be that need human interaction, and we should be
Mm.
very careful what we're willing to give up for advancement of technology.
Do you think we're biased because we work online and most of our interactions are virtual? Do you think the average person is
I'm not
agreeing
biased.
there?
I think I'm so thankful I get to work on the internet. I get to be a stay-at-home mom. I get to, be at home and be super close to my kid. God forbid there's an emergency, but I also come from a healthcare background. I'm
Mm.
also a mother. Like I understand the need for human interaction. Like they recommend that that both mom and dad do skin to skin with baby for, however long you can. And human touch is important. They've also shown there's been studies of people that go in and they volunteer in person in NQs or retirement homes, those types of things. It actually helps people a lot. And even with your baby kids that got that skin to skin, um, they ended up they did a little bit better than the babies that didn't. So human interaction is super super important. So I'm not biased about it at all. I just understand the importance of having a healthy
Mm.
medium, a happy medium. It's okay to work online and be remote, but at the same time, like when I like this weekend I want to go to the beach. I want to go get like a little place and spend the night at the beach just to kind of get out of the office and
Yeah.
interact with people, be around nature, go to a restaurant, go look at little shops, just get out and be in public. I think the removal with that will absolutely destroy society, especially American society. Like as it is already, our kids are already so detached from everything compared to compared to how we were. And it's kind of a scary thought to see. Like I don't see kids playing around outside anymore. So
Mm.
it's a bit scary to think about that. Like when I was growing up, all the kids were outside, like everybody was walking home from school together, and now we don't see that, and it's scary.
It is a bit strange how that's kind of happened. And do you think it's a United States thing? Do you see it happening around more? Do you think it's more of a US situation?
I know when I went to Estonia last year, everybody was outside, like regardless of the
Really?
weather. I think it is a big. I think like America's got a lot of problems. Like we've got like I said, parents are not parents in America. But it's absolutely wild. Like you'll get niches of communities where you will find it, but it just to me it gets like a little bit it starts to get a little bit wild. Like to watch what's going on.
Yeah, it's definitely intention that you gotta go and jump through a few extra hoops and make it happen if you're trying to find that sort of thing and probably get deeper involved rather than um, like if you're talking about like church, for example, if you just go to church on Sundays, you're not going to be nearly as tapped in, having a good time as if you're, versus going in and trying to find some people within the church and, meet up with them once or twice a week. You have a lot better of a time, but it takes that extra step to kind of put yourself out there. And it's risky. Like one thing I had thought about was, when you try and enter back into society and talk to more people, the risk is that you go, or the benefit is you get to talk to people. The risk is you run into people that, don't agree with the things that you agree with. And then now you have all this,
But that's
stuff going
life
on.
though. That's all part of life. Like can you
Right.
I actually remember my first day of kindergarten, which is weird because I don't remember a lot from my childhood because my childhood was a freaking hot mess. This super super like super super crazy, like really really bizarre. But But I remember being like super nervous and super scared that kids were going to not like me. And of course, a lot of kids
Mm,
didn't like me and I was just very different, but that's kind of part of life. Like you can't go
yeah,
like I don't know who thinks that they're going to go out and they're going to get along with anyone, like with everyone. Like part of life is like even on the internet, I don't get along with lots of people on the internet, and that's okay. It's
yeah,
human nature. It's just learning how to interact and communicate with people.
yeah. I agree with you. I think that risk is just nerve wracking. It's potentially that COVID caused some of it, or just at least
Well,
expanded
there
on it,
was
so
already a
zoomed
lot of
in.
undiagnosed mental issues that we've had, especially in America, because everybody's super entitled. Like even myself, like I find myself, complaining and being upset about this or that. But really, when I think about it, it's like, okay, why am I? It's a hot day outside. I can be outside. It working in the heat, or I can just be stuck in a house that doesn't have central air, like those types of things. I feel like a lot of people were so used to getting this, everything like this, we kind of forget where we came from, and we kind of forget about how other people are living and whatnot.
Do you think you'd mentioned kindergarten just now, that memory had popped up? I've got like kind of like you, I have a couple memories here and there that are scattered. I do remember I was quite uncomfortable for a lot of my younger years, so I ended up just probably pushing it down, just trying not to think about it as much as I could. Any
Yeah.
of those early memories that come to mind that you think shaped sort of how you looked at the world? Were you also the same in like as early as kindergarten as you are in that mentality? If you're like, I'm gonna just say what I want, they
Yeah.
don't like it, they can deal with
That's
it,
how
kind
I
of
was
thing.
brought up. Like my dad was super, super stubborn, like super headstrong, but he was also very intelligent. He was very successful before he got sick. And he was like a tough guy. So
Mm,
he was able to embody that personality, but he had to work really, really hard for it. So I was kind of I was brought up to be kind to other people, but also to speak your mind and speak your opinion and not let anybody overpower you and whatnot.
mm,
From my mom's side and my dad's side too, because my mom, she was raised in a super traditional Italian Sicilian Catholic household, and her dad want there's 3 girls. Her dad wanted boys, but they got all girls. So he just told them, he's like, "You're gonna have to work twice as hard because you're a woman," and just told them how wonderful and how great they were. I mean, he was still very strict, very difficult, but at the same time, that's kind of how my mom was raised too. So my mom went on to be very successful until like she met my dad. They got married, then all hell broke loose. But I
mm.
was kind of brought up in that's that my mom was rough on us raising us. It was like, you can say you can be whoever you want to be, but not everyone's going to appreciate it. And I was always told life was hard and all of that stuff. So
Mm, interesting. Yeah. Question here. So, I guess this is sort of changed topics a little bit, but I'm curious on your day in a life, what that looks like. I'd asked you this in the last in our last interview, but I'm curious if anything has changed, if schedules have changed. I know your daughter's a bit older now, so I don't know if any of that stuff
third
plays into
grade,
it.
yeah. I mean, we wake up, we get ready for school. Um, I'm checking messages and emails all the time.
Of course.
I pick her. It depends. Either I pick her up, her dad picks her up. We have lots of extracurricular activities. So my schedule, like keeping her on like a consistent routine, is super important. So it's pretty much the same thing. I do 2 to 4 content pieces a day, and consistently putting content. Social media is my job. And just kind of managing business and all of that with personal, and trying to make sure that I carve out enough time for my kid.
Is there anything you're working on in particular, like on a personal level, or it's just kind of chipping away and keeping the machine moving? Is there anything personally you're working on right now?
I'm just trying to be in a good place, like
Mm.
in a good, safe, healthy, happy place. Like I've been through a lot in my
Yeah.
life. I've been around a lot. I've watched a lot of insanity happen. So it's like it would be nice to be able to go get into trauma therapy and kind of deal with some of that stuff. So that's just what I'm working on now, is just focusing on being in a very mentally healthy and happy, safe place, and being able to help others along the way if they want it or they need it. And I'm just, doing the same thing, doing my content and whatnot until it's really not fun anymore, or till the money dries up, and continue just to kind of do that for now until, maybe there's something else that comes along. I don't know.
Is there anything? Have you thought about this? Have you given any thought towards if you stopped losing interest one day, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna try something else.
Then I would have to be super, super rich. So I can just retire and then just serve my local community. That's what I would like to do the most. Like I would
Mm.
have to have more money than God so that I can retire and be able, to give back that way. I mean, it would be really I've always wanted to be an attorney. But if I was to
Oh.
become an attorney or a therapist or something like that, I would want to be able to provide services like, for people that really needed it. But
Mm.
that costs money, and I don't have those funds yet. So that would be nice. So hopefully we do 100 million this cycle.
100 million this cycle. What's your portfolio look like right now? You don't have to disclose if you don't want to, but I am curious if you're spread out amongst 1,000 altcoins, or if you're like one of those top hold 10,
Not
20,
right
or
now. Like this is the thing. I played a little bit with the meme stuff and I did okay, but not like some of the people say that they did. Like most people lose money with that.
mm,
But I've always been I'm Bitcoin is always the biggest part of my portfolio, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then I don't really keep too much. I do keep some stables, not too much like I used to. And I sit, mostly cash, Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then there's some other, like Solana or Cardano or
yeah.
some of those that I think will do well. And I mean, I know we do have a lot of layer ones, but at the same time, there's going to be some layer ones that will continue to do well. And I think Solana is one of those strong ones for the
Mm.
time being.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that's going to be the unicorn this cycle, that it will be Solana. Even when new retail comes in and they're not exactly aware of who's who, they think that Solana will still take charge because of the market share that they hold within the people's heads. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's true?
Well, I mean, what market share? Meme
I
coins?
think. Well, I think that's the question. Is like people think that, so when they think of meme coins and easy money, they say Solana, but Solana also has other things that are being built. I know there's a bunch of cool projects that aren't, money grab style / meme coin style, that are also building on Solana. So people think that that's going to be the one.
People are going to use whatever's easiest. They're going to use whatever is easiest and whatever is most affordable. So whoever has the best UI UX will win. Like Phantom Wallet is absolutely amazing, but I think Phantom has. I don't use Phantom like a whole lot. I don't like hot wallets. But
mm,
yeah, but they have like what Matic Polygon, and do they have Bitcoin support on there now? I don't remember because I don't use.
I don't know if they do.
I wouldn't use a hot wallet to custody Bitcoin. That's why I don't know.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah, actually.
except the Magic Eden wallet for ordinals, but
Mhm.
that's like my play stuff. Like my Bitcoin is very precious to me.
Right. That is a question I was going to ask. Actually, now it's a perfect transition. So, we've seen all the top exchanges have some issues in the last few years. We had some massive downfalls with FTX, insert any
Ev-
crypto
We
company.
had and that's the thing too, is like people get so upset about that stuff, and I understand it absolutely sucks. But at the same time, it's like, I've lost so much money from exchanges. Like I'm guilty of it too. Like so much money. Like
Mm,
even like the ones from way back when. And it's something that kind of happens. And I feel like in crypto, like our humanism comes out, and we get so we trust all these other third parties, which we're taught don't trust, verify, and
mm.
it sucks. But eventually I think all crypto exchanges will pretty much go away. They will turn, and the ones that sustain, they'll be like banks, and we're going to be off ramping our crypto from banks. That's what's going to end up happening. It's going to be a very different landscape than what we see now.
Yeah, I was curious because we've still got Coinbase. We've still got people saying this is the move. And I'm just like, dude, I kind of trust Coinbase because I like their UI, but I don't know if I would trust them any
I
more
wouldn't
than
trust
any other
any, like, I
exchange,
wouldn't trust any of them because Coinbase, Gemini, all those big exchanges, they're shutting people's accounts down. Like, if you cannot justify a particular transaction, or let's say, for example, you're doing something weird on DeFi and, happen to cross paths with someone that did something weird, they will freeze your account and they'll shut it down, and then they'll send those funds to OFAC.
Mm,
So
yeah.
everybody should be off. Literally everyone should be off chain right now, or excuse me, off chain, should be on chain. Like we have all these dexes. Like you should be on chain. You should not be using a centralized exchange at all.
Dang. Would that be, I was going to say, for some advice for people who are entering, I'm sure there are a handful of people every now and then who come in who are not from the ecosystem already, some new people that get onboarded. For those people, do you have any wise words for them, or any personal stories from this year that you think might be helpful?
Learn to self custody, and have multiple different wallets. Practice good OPSEC. Try to have separate devices. Like when I do GGen stuff, I don't use my setup. Like I've got other devices that I use. Like people can even get into your printer if they want to get into like the wireless printer.
Mm,
So just be really careful. Be careful with who you interact with. Always double check something. If you're not sure about something, just wait for another bus to come.
yeah, and that's one thing that we deal with a lot in crypto. There's a trend. It feels like everyone hops on really fast, and you're like, well, that just happened 2 weeks ago. There's another thing that I missed. Tron had their moment. I was
That's
curious if you had any
okay
thoughts on
though. But
Tron.
that's okay though. It's okay to miss because there's going to be more moments. Yes, we're in a downtrend. Yes, we're making lower highs. Yes, or higher lows, or whatever the heck. We're just the charts don't look super great right now, and that's okay. Bitcoin will rebound. The market will rebound. It's going to be different than what we saw before, but that's okay. But understand too, like sometimes sitting on your hands is the best strategy because you're not you're
Mm,
supposed to be protecting your capital.
Yeah, that's a great point there. That's a great point there.
Like,
That
you have
that
to
is
protect your
frustrating.
capital in the bull run and in the bear market. Like, bear market, you're protecting your capital so that you can get to the bull market. And when you get to the bull market, you really need to think responsibly about should you use disposable income? Should you
Mm,
be taking profit? Moonbags are great. Like, I talk about them all the time, and I'm like, I always ask people on Twitter, like, when we have drops, did you take profit? And people are like, why would we take profit now? There's no profit to take. But it's like, dude, shut up. Like, you hit this 50 times, you hit this 20 times. Like, having diamond hands, especially with like the current Solana ecosystem, again, that's not the bad thing at Solana. It's the people that are using it. But
mm,
you have to practice risk management. Like, and people are like, well, you sold and you did this and you did that. You don't have to sell everything. Like, you could just make a
mm.
moon bag. It's when you remove your disposable or your initial investment, profit enough for taxes, and you hold the bag. You could stake it, do whatever the hell you want with it, and then just move on to the next. Like, you're here to make money. That's part of protecting your capital.
Yeah, yeah, very great points over there. Also, I just realized hadn't even clicked I just realized there were comments coming in here, and I did not see them until just now. I apologize for people who left comments earlier there. Bro's still rocking the near glasses. You know, it's funny, people call them the near glasses because I stuck a sticker on there
I
a
have a
couple months
question for
ago.
you.
Yeah,
What did you think about Nier's marketing stunt?
to be completely honest, I'm not a big. I think it worked. Like I saw some numbers and there's an uptick. I'm sure that's always how it goes with those things. I'm not a big fan of that kind of stuff. For me, I think it's like the third time I've seen it. I think it's because I wasn't that interested in it. But they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
I liked it.
I
People
don't
got pissed
know.
off at me, but I liked it. The reason why I liked it, it was something a little bit different. You didn't know if it was like bad or if it was good or if it was like illicit stuff that was happening, but it was
Sure.
entertaining. They did a great job marketing to the crypto community because again, when
Mm,
you're dealing with marketing, like you got people talking about you. Did they market to non-crypto people? No. Was that their intention? No. So I thought it was
that's a good
interesting.
point.
Like, I mean, I thought it because we're talking about it now, and no one
Mm,
really talks about. I don't. Only time I talk about Near is if like I do coin requests and nobody requests Near. So, and again, I don't have an
mm,
issue with it. I don't have an issue
right.
with any of that. I just thought it was interesting, and people got pissed off because they always get pissed off, and then I get to yell at people on the internet.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they get mad, but I guess from my end, I saw really relatively quickly that they were doing a lot of replies talking about the redacted conference in Bangkok. So I pretty immediately I knew it was not a
Yeah.
real thing, and I was like, it's fine. Like they're gonna do what they're gonna do. I guess I'm not so much into that world of the marketing side of things. I think they had fun with it, and you're right, it is different. Near protocols, bashed because they're too boring. It's too quiet over there. They need some more excitement and stuff. So maybe it's a push in the right direction. I'm not as involved on that side of things, but no, no, William, I appreciate you noticing the glasses. I have had those glasses before I started making content around your protocol. But and then I appreciate the rest. I see Seth in here, Shamana in here as well. Great to have everyone. I want to shift a little bit into. I feel like this would be helpful for context of the conversation as well on maybe who's been your greatest influence in the crypto world and then broader, not so much crypto, but just life in general. If there's any influences that come
No
to
one in
mind.
crypto. No one in crypto. Like, it's like a big circus here. Really, really big circus. Who are my influences outside of crypto? My great aunt.
Hmm, why?
She was one of the women that broke glass ceilings on Wall Street. She was one of the women that was working at a chemical bank in New York. She was an immigrant, worked in a sweatshop, applied at the bank, got a job there, started sweeping floors. She was working when women really weren't allowed to work, like back in I think the 50s and
Wow.
whatnot. She worked her way all the way up. Well, she trained like the CEOs and all kinds of stuff, but because she was a woman, she wasn't able to hold those positions. But she worked and
Mm,
she lived life on her terms. She was a devout Catholic. She took care of the neighborhood kids. She was always very loving and giving. She took me, my sisters, my mom in after my mom and dad split, and she let us continue to live there shortly after my dad had passed away. And she was always just a very selfless person. She cared about helping others around her, cared about helping the church, and all of that. And she lived life on her terms and did really cool stuff when women weren't allowed to do cool stuff. I mean, those of you listening, watching, I'm not a crazy feminist at all, any way, shape, or form. I just like to applaud people who do really cool shit when other people aren't doing it. Like my grandma did the
mm,
complete opposite. My grandma got married and had 3 kids and stayed married. My aunt lived a fruitful life. She traveled the world. She worked in a heavily male dominated industry and did well for herself. My mom actually has a watch that the chemical bank gave her for 25 years of service. That was from Tiffany's. So that says
Love it.
a lot. So that's probably my hero, somebody that I would look up to, is somebody that was so sick in the years and years and years before she passed away, but
Mm.
continued to give and to be kind and showcase compassion and love and acceptance to everyone around her always, even though they were cuckoo.
Were you able to, you said this is your great aunt, right?
My great aunt, yeah.
Were you able to connect with her and talk with her at all? Or was it
Oh,
just,
hell yeah.
stories you've been okay.
No, she moved us in. Like, my parents got
Oh,
divorced. We
okay.
had
Got it. Okay.
nothing.
Got it.
She moved us in, and then we stayed there even after my dad passed away. Um and I would, when she'd go back and forth to Brooklyn, and
Mhm.
anytime that she would come, like, I would always call her, I think every Wednesday. After
Mhm.
she like after I was like an adult. So I'd call her every single Wednesday to catch up and to chit chat.
Do you remember anything she had said specifically, versus, the things you were watching and observed in her and you were like, "Man, that's cool." But is there anything she said that you remember that comes to mind?
Oh, it's probably not appropriate. No, she was always a very kind person, and she always was, always not didn't want to judge people or whatnot. Like, she was like, she was, because she's a Sicilian Catholic from Brooklyn, like,
Mm.
very, like, would tell you, she wouldn't sugarcoat anything, but she was very strong, and she was very ladylike, but at the same time she was very um she was just unapologetically her. It was more of her
Mm.
actions.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd also say, like, for people who have influenced me, probably more my dad than anyone, just because I would watch his demeanor. He never really lost his cool, so I think that's something I took with me. Nothing he never said to, like, not lose your cool. He just didn't lose his cool. He was just relatively calm when things went wrong, especially, and I think that's been very helpful. There's a
Yeah.
story that I've heard told a million times about I think it's called, like, the maybe story, where the dad has, like, he's like lives on a farm. His son, like, falls and breaks his arm, and all the people come and say that's so terrible that your son broke his arm. He's like, maybe. And then, the war comes and they're taking away all the guys to go fight in the war, and then they don't take the son, and he doesn't have to go to war. And so they're like, "Oh, that's so amazing! You get to keep your son." He's like, "Maybe," and it's like basically the cycle keeps repeating. And I guess one of the lessons you can take there is you don't have to overreact and freak out at every moment of the stage of your life, because you never know how they're going to pan out.
Right.
I am curious though, when you first got into the content world, you said it was 2017-ish. Is that when you said you started making content? Like, is there any differences when you first got in versus now where you are today with how things have panned out? Also, maybe in the broader crypto world, as well as just your career.
I mean, I first got on Twitter and there was, like, no girls there. There were some, but not any. Like, girls were not
Mm,
allowed to post selfies. Like, if you're a girl on Twitter, they were just they were horrible to you. And now you get to we see so many women making content and, like, all kinds of stuff, and it's really cool to see. Like, really, really cool, because that, like, embodies crypto, is people from all different walks of life being able to be who they are, making a way for themselves, and I absolutely love that. But it was a lot different from when I first started. Like, back when I first started, I started the YouTube channel to showcase my meetups because I had
mm.
audience from a global scale, and then the channel came into interviews, into technical analysis, and then I just started the daily news show.
Love it. Love it. I had a few questions here. We got a few minutes left. These are kind of like random-ish, but a couple of these were very interesting. If you could participate in one historical event, could be crypto or not, what would it be and why?
Ooh, one historical event. I don't know. Honestly, I haven't really thought about it. It would be nice to go back to, like, the 80s or the 90s, or maybe even like the 70s, and kind of live and be around that. That would be cool. But like a historical event, there was so much turmoil that happened. Like, I feel like we
Mm,
don't know everything that happened. But I would definitely like to
mm.
experience, a lot of the music stuff that occurred during those times.
Well, I was gonna, that's actually an interesting point. Like, what do you think they will? How do you think the last 10 years of news and life and stuff will be reported on when they're looking back in 30 years to the 2010s, 2020s, and stuff like that?
I have no idea, honestly, like, because I was around in the early 2000s, and then I watched the
Mm,
decline of good music into the 2010s, and then we're here now in this age of tech, so it's gonna be interesting to see what they think of us. It's so funny because, like, now on TikTok, everyone's like, "Vintage, the
mm.
2000s are vintage," and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's you guys don't wanna go back to the 2000s." So those were like the final hurrah days of, like, going out and having fun and having, like, just things being affordable, was like the early 2000s. Other than that, you don't want to go back there. There was very strict, um very strict weight requirements and the way our clothes fit and all that jazz. Yeah, it was a completely different beast. Society, our society today in 2024 was not built for that type of stuff back in the early 2000s.
Man, yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens and how it all unfolds. Getting back to a little bit towards crypto, we brought up the show that you were on, where you guys kind of vetted out a lot of the crypto projects. And I am curious for people who are building. There's a ton of people building crypto projects right now. A lot of them are gearing up for what they believe to be a monumental retail bull run. We'll see what happens. Do you have any tips, practical things that you're like, hey, I just vetted like hundreds of projects. You need to make sure you come with these things.
We don't vet them. The production picks them.
Well, like when you're up there and you're like, okay, I'm thinking as an investor, is this a move? Is this going to be successful? What are those things that you look into?
Probably don't create in America. If you do decide to do that, have a really good CPA, have a really good attorney, and I would create something that people can use, that has customer service, that makes a difference. Nobody wants another layer 1. No one wants a layer 3, a layer 4, a layer 5. Nobody wants these things that are complex to use. Like, we have enough people in crypto. Let's get brand new people in. Let's make something that is going to improve their quality of life. Create something with dope utility. Don't do the same thing people are doing. Unless you have more money than God, there's no need for it. We've got thousands of garbage projects out there. It's not, and when I say garbage, that's not nice. We have a bunch of projects out there that are just they're entrepreneurs. Most people want to do good things. They just end up failing. So that's what I would do. I would try to create something that's going to get people into crypto, get people excited about crypto, not what we already have, unless you're going to make it better.
There are a couple of industries like RWAs and DPINs that have caught a little bit of traction in the last year or so. A lot of big companies are dumping enormous amounts of money into them. Do you have any thoughts on some? Do you have any upcoming trends / areas of the industry that catch your eye that you think this could be an interesting run this year?
Not right now.
No?
I'm very bored with everything. Like, everything is still pretty complicated to use. And I get people that are like, Wendy, you're dumb. You don't know. Blah, 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 blah. Well, that's because where I come from, I come from a place of like the average person that's literally just trying to make ends meet right now in this recession that the entire world is saying there's not a recession. Like, people don't care about, like, if it's going to take a lot of their time or it's going to cost them money, they don't care. They want to use something that's really cool and that's fun.
Do you think there's something in the ledger world / the hardware wallet world that is like something that's extra needed, or are there any industries that you're like oversaturated? We don't need more of these. Like, in my head, go ahead.
We need the bank. Sorry, I kicked my thing or pushed my thing back. We need a bank. We need the banks to like let people off ramp. That's what we need. We need insurance companies that are going to back up your ledgers or your cold storage. We need companies that are going to help people custody their stuff, that are going to cover losses. That's what we need. And I know it sounds super lame. It sounds super lame, but that's how the world works. Why is somebody going to take their $10,000 that they saved up? Because most Americans, over 50% of Americans, don't even have $500 in their savings account for emergency for a day. And why would they take their $10,000 and put it into Bitcoin and put it on cold storage when they could just leave it and not have to worry about it? And the whole argument, banks are going to go under, blah, blah, blah. I get that. That's fine. But I'm literally talking about a hardworking American family or hardworking American that has saved up that $10,000. Why would they take it out of their 401k or their bank account and put it into Bitcoin if they don't know how to manage self-custody?
Fair points all around. Listen, we got a couple minutes left. I want to run through a couple fast rapid fire Q&A questions and we'll wrap. It's been an awesome conversation, by the way. And for anyone who's listening, by the way, for anyone who enjoyed the conversation, please like, retweet, or I guess it depends which platform you're on, but reshare in some way would be amazing.
Do all the stuff.
All the things, you guys know. Okay. Biggest fear, if you have one, and has it changed in the last few years?
My biggest fear is probably, becoming destitute, becoming homeless again. And but the biggest one is something happening to my child. Because if I don't have financial ability to take care of my child, that's bad too. So those are the two biggest things.
Yeah, definitely. What about maybe the hardest thing you've worked through and come out on the other side of, if anything comes to mind?
I probably can't answer.
I hear you. That was a heavy question. You
Well,
you either
just
it would either
because,
come to
like,
mind or
I'll tell you this, I've been through a lot of shit, like, a lot of, like, things, like, I've seen things happen to people that, like, you see in movies, and you're like, "Oh my god, that's terrible." I've been around that type of stuff, and just being able to be still alive and to have, like, 10 fingers, 10 toes, to still
mm,
have majority of my mind, like, that's, like, a cool thing to be able to overcome, and being put in situations where people are doing bad things to you and you don't have, you're not able to fight back, that sucks too. So the fact that I'm still here and I'm semi-healthy, woo.
let's go. Do you attribute, like, boxing and the fighting, the MMA and being active to a lot of that?
Yeah, because it
Feeling
taught
better
me,
and
because after my dad died, I lost my protector, so when I learned how to
mm,
box, it taught me to I can leave bad situations and I can fight back, so it gives you this sense of confidence, and it also is so good for mental health, like, it is the best form of therapy. I've been to dozens of therapists throughout my life, for all different types of reasons, and boxing has
mm,
been the only thing that has really, really helped me because, it gives you this, because because you like do the fitness stuff too, right? You came from that.
mhm,
Like if you're able to lift, like, okay, like let's say you're getting ready to lift your next set and you're going up from what you did before. That whole mental thing, like you have to prepare yourself for that mentally, and you have to
definitely.
prepare yourself to be able to actually do it. And you're like, oh my god, that's awesome. That's the same thing with boxing. Like boxing is a little bit different than MMA because it's more, in my opinion, it's more mental. Like you
Mm.
really have to figure, like it's a lot harder because you can't use all of your limbs. You really have to figure out what your opponent's move is, and then figure out how you're going to counter that.
I've actually never heard it described that way, especially when you mentioned you have to think and mentally prepare yourself before you lift up the weight. I never even thought
You have
to
you
be
have to, but that's true,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's super true. I've heard of the I mean, I guess I didn't know what yeah, I mean, that's super true. I didn't really think or maybe give that enough credit to what it was. Like, I feel like in the
So let me
last
ask you this.
yeah.
Let's say you're having a terrible day and your mind isn't there. You're just like, I had a really bad day. There's all these crazy things that are happening to me, but I'm still going to go to the gym. Your energy
Mm,
level, how good is your energy level? You're not going to be able to achieve something. You might be able to, but the chances of you being able to achieve something or to hit a goal that day when you have a bad attitude, you've already been beaten up throughout the day, is the chances of you being able to do it not going to happen. But if you go, like
mm,
if you had a pretty decent day or you're able to overcome whatever's bad, you're like, you know what, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to go in the gym and I'm going to hit this rep or I'm going to hit this set.
dang.
And you have to mentally prepare yourself for it, because if you don't, you're not going to do it. Like this morning, I couldn't run because the smog is so bad here, because the air
Mm,
quality is so bad. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna do, and I normally do running and I do like two little workouts or whatever. So today I was just in a horrible mood. I was just like, didn't want to do anything. So I didn't even do my run. I came in super lazy. I did my workouts and those were, I got them done. I got through it, but it wasn't up to what I should have done.
wow, this is what I needed. This is literally what I needed because I've not been as active in the last year or so, just because maybe, taking on the new thing with Wolf, and there's so many spaces, and I just made the excuses. I've never thought about it in that way, and I've heard every argument for why to exercise. So I'm very glad you put it that way. So I
Even if you
appreciate you
do
saying
5
that.
minutes a day, or even if you wake up, like when I was going through some stuff, like I would wake up and I would just do 20 push-ups. And then like, you
Mm,
know what? I don't have the energy to work out today. I can't do this. I don't want to do that, but I'm just going to do 20 push-ups. And I would do it every single day, or jump squats or whatever. And then it would segue into other things. And I'd get my mind right. But you have to start.
yeah,
People are like, okay, well, if I'm not going to do the full hour workout, I'm just going to skip it. But in reality, give what you can and keep going and going and going. Because most things are mental.
that's amazing advice. Man, I thought I had heard every bit of advice for the exercise. I never thought about mentally preparing yourself and that being the reason to put yourself through it, because otherwise you will never have that moment in the day. That's great advice. Okay, now because this question makes perfect sense to follow, what's your favorite food chain?
Pizza.
Anywhere?
Oh, my favorite food chain? I
If
don't
it
like
is pizza?
I don't like chains. I like to go to
No?
small businesses. I go to small
Mm,
businesses. The Rainbow has the best pizza in LA. Everybody knows that because
does
we
it?
all go there for that. Rainbow has the best pizza. Um, the Sherman in the Valley has the best food, like best bar food.
Mm.
Joffrey's in Malibu, best scallops you'll ever eat in your life. What else? Yeah.
Love it, love it. All right, this will be the final question here. Do you have any do you have any dreams or reoccurring dreams? Do you have any thoughts on dreams in just as a
I
topic
stopped
in
dreaming a
general?
while ago because I asked for them to go away.
And that worked?
Yeah. That's a whole nother
All right.
conversation. to talk
That's a
about
whole
like
nother
that,
conversation.
about like spiritual stuff. And like I
Sure.
believe in a God, a higher power. Like I've got whatever, but I think about it a little bit differently than people. But I
Mm,
don't dream, because they're not dreams. They're real thing. Like they're like actual things that happen. Like I can feel them. It's like sleep paralysis
mm,
on crack. So I just says I don't want it anymore.
mm. Interesting. Was it affecting you in like a way like outside when you woke up kind of thing or?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I don't have really good sleeping stuff, but I have to go. I have a
Mm.
phone call.
Sounds good. No worries. I really appreciate you coming on and dropping some alpha, especially on the fitness side. So Wendy, thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Have a good rest of your day.
See you later, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.